Fantastic speaker with us. Everybody read her bio, right, I'm sure. And we know that she has a lot of credentials. She's a very, very awesome woman. You're going to hear a lot of positive things tonight, things that are going to change your lives. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Dr. LaSharnda Beckwith. Go ahead, give her a hand. That's a long walk, right?
I really could walk just there, but I have to do what the host asked me to do.
I was trying to be fancy. Thank you for coming, Dr. Beckwith.
Thank you for inviting me.
We're going to start today with just a little conversation. We're going to do a little different from what we did this morning. I'm going to let I'm going to sit down. I'm going to let Dr. Beckwith tell you all about her business. She has her own business. I'm going to let her tell you about her organization. It's called Professional Christian Women in Service. I'm going to also let her tell you about her radio talk show. I'm going to let her tell you about her book and her upcoming books that she's writing right now. I am going to give her the floor, and I'm going to let her just go. And when she finishes, we're going to have a question and answer period. And after about 30 minutes or so, we're going to do some giveaways. How does that sound?
Great.
Okay, so but before we get started, I just want to ask you guys one question. What is our motto?
There's life after 50.
Now, we're smaller numbers, but I know that we can do better than that.
There's life after 50.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay, Dr. Beckwith.
I wish I had known. I thought we were going to do just like we did this morning, where she would ask me, you know, when you talk about yourself, who wants to talk about themselves? It's like you're bragging on yourself, you know? So if it's left up to me, I'm going to tell you I'm LaSharnda Beckwith, and I am who I am. You read my bio already, didn't you? And so do you really want me to sit and tell you about all? It's just easier for me to answer a question.
Okay, let's do that then. Because I really want you guys to know about her. See, she thinks she's bragging, but you know, that's how modest people are. Dr. Beckwith, first of all, can you tell us about, first of all, tell me this. What inspired you in the first place to get all of those degrees?
Okay, so I'll say this, I have a PhD, I have a doctorate in organization and management, and I specialize in leadership. I have an MBA, Master's of Business Administration degree, and I have a Master's of Arts in Business Management and a Bachelor's in Professional Studies. I can't say what inspired me to get all those degrees. I will say that I think as a child coming up, I just felt that I think my grandparents had a lot of influence in this, and that I always had this hang up about people looking at me and thinking that, you know, somebody just liked you and that's why you got where you got. And so I always wanted to be this person that was taken very seriously. I'm really a serious person just by nature. So I wanted to be a person that was a credible person. I knew my craft, and that I wouldn't have anybody ever say to me that I wasn't qualified for whatever it was that I was pursuing.
That's a good answer. Now, we know you have all of these degrees and you started your own company. Can you tell us how that came about?
Okay, so for 26 years, I worked for the Army Air Force Exchange Service. I retired from, it's called AFIS for short. I retired from there in 2011. And when I first went to work for AFIS, I went in as a college trainee. And so I was always in management. When I retired from there in 2011, I had already obtained my doctorate, and it was always my goal that when I left the company, that I would start my own company. That was always a dream of mine. So Beckwith Leadership Consulting Group, that is my organization, and we go into companies around DFW and anywhere else if we're invited, and we do assessments of the organization. And then once we do the assessment to determine skill gaps, we develop training programs to train their managers and their leaders. So that's Beckwith Leadership Consulting Group. I also am the Chief Executive Officer for Professional Christian Women in Service. And that is a 501c3 nonprofit organization And what me and the officers of PCW do, our motto is to enable, encourage, energize, and empower women to be all that God's called them to be. So some of the things that we do to that end, we target the area of service. In Grand Prairie, we do a financial literacy course. We do it once a quarter over at the Grand Prairie Library. It's free of charge, and so we help people develop budgets, spending plans. We help them look at their credit and how to adjust values and behaviors that may have gotten them into trouble, and to just get on a better track as far as their finances are concerned. And the other thing we do with Professional Christian Women, we meet monthly. We have a networking group that meets. Professional Christian Women is an interdenominational group, so women are from all over, you know, I almost want to call it a non-denominational, but that's not true. It's interdenominational because there are women from Catholic, Baptist, Pentecostal, you know, Episcopalian, Presbyterian type traditions. So we get together in this networking and we kind of focus on whatever issue is affecting, it's whatever issue they ask for that we address, but issues that affect women.
I want to ask a question that somebody asked me online on
Okay.
Facebook. Somebody asked me to ask you, how does a person who wants to be an entrepreneur first they want to know what are the key essentials to becoming a good leader?
Okay, so for that person that wants to know some of how to become an entrepreneur, I just did a seminar, me and several women in New York, on, it's called, she calls it Christianpreneurship, but it's an entrepreneur type series that you'll see it out here in just probably the end of the month. So probably in July is when you'll see it, and we're all giving away free things. These are women from all across the world. They've gotten together and they've taken segments of, entrepreneurship. And mine was on teamwork and building teams and how millennials have a different opinion about entrepreneurship. They embrace the idea because they don't see themselves growing up in this hierarchy type of organization like we did as baby boomers. So some of the keys to leadership, is that the question?
That was the question.
Well, I thought this was going to be much like this morning, a little bit more intimate and different. But if we want to talk business, this is my area. So here we are, when we talk about the keys to leadership. The 21st century organization is about service and collaboration. So when it's service and collaboration, if those are, that's where organizations are leading, then the leader should be more in tune with such things as emotional intelligence, understanding servant leadership, those types of things.
Okay. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure. Something I know about well, and I don't mind promoting it. Okay, so this book is When You're Happy With You. I wrote this book in 2010. It was my very first book. All my life I had dreamt of writing my own book. And what it is where the title kind of speaks for itself. It's when you're confident in who you are. It's where you're not looking at what other people, what they say that you should be, but you're measuring yourself against, for me, it's against God's Word, and it's not against some superficial standard. So that's when you're happy with you, is it's looking in the mirror, looking at the person in the mirror and seeing somebody that's authentic and being happy with that person and not trying to change who you are just so everybody's going to like you. Because if you would just be yourself and be happy with the person that God created you to be, you'll be okay. That's what it's about.
Amen.
My next book.
Thank you.
Shameless plug. My next book, it should be released here in the next, let's pray that it's released by the end of the year, but we're finishing it up now. I'm finishing it up now. And that book is It's Your Life, Own It. And I'm very proud of that book. It really speaks a lot of how I think, and it really is about happiness as a choice. It's yours. we don't have to be victims. We don't have to make excuses. We don't need to blame others. We need to take responsibility for who we are. We need to take responsibility for our own lives. And we shouldn't sit and think about, oh, it's because of all of these other things that I'm not successful. You've heard the excuses over the years. So I'm not one that embraces what everybody else would say about success or lack of success. I believe success is a definition that you come up with for your own life. And when you do that, you can live a content life. But when you're racing, this is kind of what, I just finished my radio show before coming over. And I wasn't going to talk about this, but I was laughing as I was doing the show because I thought, oh, this is what I should have shared this morning. We had such a great time this morning, but these are 6 keys that I talk about my show was about living a desperate life. Are you living a desperate life? Are you living a happy life? And so if you're living a desperate life, it's always dissatisfaction involved. You're not happy with anything you have, even though you probably have everything that you need. So my next book, It's Your Life, Own It. It really is about finding contentment and being satisfied.
Now, tell us about your family. Tell us about your family, and then tell us how you decided to embark upon all of the ventures that you're doing. You have so many hats. She's wearing a ton of hats. So how did that happen? How did all of that happen?
I don't know. I think it's just the way I'm wired, but I'm married to Beckwith. I've been married 32 years to the same man. And probably people know him quicker than they know me because my husband doesn't meet a stranger. So everybody he meets, they're his friend. But we have one son, and our son is not quite 30, although we joke and we say that he's 30, and it bothers him because he's not 30 until September. So Brandon is 30 years old. No, he's 29 years old. He lives in San Diego. And we have a grandson, Jaden, and Jaden is really the love of our lives, and he is the center of our universe, and he's just, very, very special. So if you saw him, you would understand what I mean. He has no, he has pure joy. I almost think of him as like having an old soul. I just wonder if maybe my grandmother or grandfather somehow has been, kind of poured into him. So he's just an old soul, and he's wonderful.
And tell us about your grandparents, your upbringing.
Oh, okay. So I was born in New York, and New York City. Okay, I was born in Brooklyn. But I have to tell you that even though I was born there, my mom died when I was young. And so I left New York and I went to live with my grandparents in Georgia, a place that I lived. Now, if you're from Georgia, don't get mad at me, but I just hated Georgia. Now, as I've gotten older, I'm very different. But I was little. I was an only child, and I go and I meet these cousins and stuff that really treated me very, very bad. Just, because I was different. Do you understand what I mean? When you talk different and all that stuff, it's just silly kid stuff, that's all. And so my grandmother and my grandfather raised me. I never had my father. And so it was my wonderful, 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 honest to God, God knows what he was doing because I was put with the best people on earth, and that was my grandmother and my grandfather. So they raised me, they established a foundation. That's how my faith was developed. And I believe that, I'm simply an extension of them, of who they were. And so I grew up there, but then I left there as soon as I could. I met my husband in England. My husband and I, we met there, we dated a little bit, then we got married, and then about a year later we had a kid.
I love the way you said that. Okay, you want to tell them who you are? Who you are as an advocate of empowerment, that's our topic. I do have, and this is going to be an intimate setting. Last week, I guess everybody remembers last week that we talked about some things, some loneliness and some unforgiveness. We talked about some of the struggles that we're having. And if it's okay with you, is it okay with you? I want to share something with you. Delinda, if you guys remember Delinda, she looks different than she did on our last show, but you guys remember Delinda, right? You remember the issue that she was having. She had her mother was sick. Well, her mother's passed away. Her mother passed away on Friday, so please let's support her. To stand by her and support her in the struggle. You guys remember, she was having a struggle within the family. You know how families do when she's taking care of her mother her whole life, and now she's going through a struggle with being her own person, being free from the bondage, and that kind of thing. So I want Dr. Beckwith to address that a little bit, and I'm just going to let her talk to you and tell you let her empower you, because she has the tools to make that happen. Dr. Beckwith.
Well, I won't, thank you. I don't want to do like I did this morning because it is a small, intimate group. So do you mind if I sit and we kind of chat like this? Or you want me to come out to you?
No.
Okay. Whatever you feel comfortable. Okay. Well, I guess this is just not something we'll talk about here. I wanted to talk a little bit about just life in general. And as I spoke to the women this morning, and I think this is why when I was doing the show, I was thinking these are some of the things that I was sharing with the ladies this morning. I want women to understand, I know this group, it's women over 50. I'm over 50. And I so many times meet people that feel that, they're at a certain age and that they can't accomplish anything that they thought they wanted to accomplish back when they were 20, 18 years old, 30 years old, and that somehow, it's too late. They may think that they can do little things, but they can't do the big things, the big rocks that they wanted to do at an early age. So if you would bear with me, this is a little bit more organized than I was this morning. I just kind of went with the flow, but as I thought about this, these are some of the things I wanted you to think about. I don't know if you've ever heard of Henry David Thoreau. You've heard of him. Well, remember, he's known for stating this in Walden, and this is what he stated. He said that the mass of man lead lives of quiet desperation. And what he says is he thinks that misplaced value is the cause. There's a misplaced value. We feel a void in our lives, and we attempt to fill that void with things like, I call them superficial things, but things like money, possessions, status, accolades, those types of things. We think these things will make us happy. And one of the things I was saying on the show today is that if you get to know me or you know anything about me, or if you Google me on the internet, everything about me there's a theme that goes through it, and it's about happiness. Because I really do believe that happiness is a choice. And even when we're going through something that's not something we invited to our door, it's still a choice as to how we decide that we're going to respond, we're going to react to it. And so I'm just going to share 6 things that I want you to think about, because, can I put this down and just chat with you?
Yes.
You can hear me okay, right?
I can hear you. Here? Everybody here?
Sometimes what we do is we will listen to pessimists, we'll listen to naysayers, we'll listen to people around us say things like, oh, well, you shouldn't think about doing that. You shouldn't do that because, time has passed you by. Or, do you really want to do that because it's so much hard work? Or, are you sure this is something that was your dream? All that kind of stuff. And when people start to do that, I think, when I hear them doing it, it drives me insane. And I generally will jump in, even if I know you or not, and say, stop listening to stuff like that. Don't let people tell you or define you or tell you what you can do. And don't let people say to you that, oh, okay, so you're 60 years old, you know, you have more life behind you than you have in front of you. I don't get it. And when I hear about people talking like that, all I think is that they're designed to crush people's dreams. They're designed to crush people's dreams. So what Thoreau argued was that the value we attach to possessions and status is misplaced, and I agree. When he's talking about, and I'm going to bring it to LaSharnda's, what I'm talking about, I talk a lot about this too, is that we look at the homes that people live in, we look at the cars that people drive, we look at the education that people have, we look at, you know, the perfect home, meaning family, look at the perfect friends, the connections that we have, all of that stuff, and we say, why her? Why not me? I'm doing all the same stuff. And you may not even do that knowingly. For instance, you're at work, and people at work's getting promoted around you. I live there, so I get it. So people are getting promoted, and you get stuck where you are. And the first thing that comes up is you will measure your worth because somebody else is getting promoted and you didn't. And I've come to believe, and this is when I started to write a lot about I'm happy with who I am. I've come to believe that in God's timing, it'll happen. And what's for me is for me. And if we would focus on really our purpose and not the superficial stuff, all of the other things will be added. So when he talks about misplaced values, when he argues that the value we attach to possessions and status is misplaced, I have to agree with him. I don't think we even think about it though. And before you know it, that's where we are. We're so wrapped up into looking at what everybody else, what they've accomplished. That's why, you know, I have girlfriends that are just so wonderful. But you would never know anything about their status if you met them. We don't talk like that. And the reason we don't talk like that is because our goal in life is to make sure that women are empowered and to make sure that we open up. That's what PCW is about, is to open up opportunities for other women and to support women. I talk so much against gossip. I really do. You know, everybody says, no, gossip is wrong, gossip is wrong. Gossip is a negative behavior too. And it doesn't do anything to empower us or to help us evolve as humans. What it will do, it'll tear other people down, and it drags us into that negative situation also. So I don't like that. I don't like, you see, I don't get, I have a friend, Denise, she says, they're just so messy. And she's right, we don't get involved in that mess. So pay attention to these signs when I talk to you about quiet desperation, because quiet desperation happens here. You won't say anything about it. You just sit and think about all of the accomplishments that everybody else has achieved. And you'll sit and think about all those superficial things like the possessions that people have, the money they have, the status that they have, the connections. And you sit and you think about those things. And the next thing you know, you're not satisfied, even though you're okay. You're okay. And I was thinking about this today as I was talking about it, and the reason it was important to me is because lately in my time of reflection in the morning, one of the things I focus on is to really concentrate on being content. Because I look at my life and I'm like, oh my God, my life is great. And you may say, my life isn't great. Your life's greater than somebody else's. It really is. In 2012, I was sick and really went through a really hard time. So the whole year, in and out of the hospital, just a lot going on. And I remember saying, oh God, please don't let me die. You know, I was going through that kind of thing. And I promise you, during that time, it was almost as if something said to me, stop thinking that you're going to die and think about living. And that's what, and you know, before that, I always thought about living. I always thought about happiness and stuff like that. But even in that dark time, you see where we can we'll tend to drag ourselves into that. If we're not paying attention, we won't pull ourselves out. So I want you to pay attention to 6 things. I want you to pay attention to 6 things to help you not fall into this quiet desperation and to help you live a happy life. I do want to share one thing, if it's okay. It'll probably be bleeped out. But I do want you to think about Ecclesiastes 3, 12 through 13 if you get a chance. Just read that one little piece. Do you understand what I mean when I say Ecclesiastes 3, 12 through 13? Okay. Just when you get a minute, just read that one little piece. And it's about happiness. It's about happiness. So, you might be leading a life of quiet desperation if A, you worked hard to reach a place of comfort and security and you're still not content. If you've worked hard to reach a place of comfort and security, do you understand what I mean by that? Like most of us really do live in comfort in the United States. Even people that are so-called poor live in comfort in the United States. How many of you have ever traveled outside of the U.S.? All of us. How many of you, now I'm not talking about London and Germany, I've lived in those places. I'm talking about in a third world place. How many people have ever been somewhere like Honduras or Nicaragua or you've been, you know what I mean, Cuba, some of those places. Now, for you that have been there, do you understand what I mean when you see it? You know what I'm talking about? I was in Honduras, and as we were driving up the street, you see kids playing out in the muddy ponds. You see them over in the lakes and stuff. And we call them little canals, you know, here in the States we call them little canals. And our kids won't get it because our kids are too good for that, you know. But those kids are out there and they're happy. And they're happy. They're playing and running and having fun. And they don't have anything like what we have. Right? Okay, so when you've worked hard and you've reached a place of comfort and security, just think about that. But you're still dissatisfied? When you're comfortable but yet you feel trapped, have you ever felt that way? Yes. I think we all have, I really do. So the thing that we have to do is that we have to recognize that we're like that we're feeling trapped and that we're feeling discontent. And then ask why. And then take captive those thoughts. We have to be intentional about not allowing that to take captive of us, but we take control. You've convinced yourself you're not talented, that you're not creative. Have you ever known anybody like that? I deal with women like this all the time. They'll say what they can't do. They'll say that they're not smart enough. Have you ever had anybody okay, so maybe I made the nerve. Okay, so let me give you an example. So I've had women say to me, but I'm not creative. If you say that around me, I should pop you. Every one of us, we may not be as creative as the other, but every one of us have some type of creative juice. You know, that's just the way it is. You may not be able to go out and build what are some of the things women are doing these days? I just did a bathroom. I just put a backsplash and I pulled all of the wallpaper down. I painted it, and then I put a backsplash. I did it myself. I'm proud of myself. You know, because what we do, we'll say, I can't do that. And I'm like, you know what I told myself? Let me tell you something else I did. And I told my husband, I said, you should be so happy that you're married to me. I told him this a couple of weeks ago. Now, you guys are going to laugh and think, this isn't true. It is. Let me tell you what happened. So, you know how you have a lot of trees in your yard, and then because there's so much shade, your grass will die? 2 or 3 years ago, we paid thousands of dollars to put sod in, so the grass is dying. Okay, so the neighbor and I were having the same problem. So the men, they come out into the yard and they're talking. They're getting ready to go, and we had the guys there that's going to put down the sod. And they were going to charge us thousands of dollars to come and till the yard and put down more sod. And I was like, okay, all right. what you gotta do. So then I go to my office the next day, and I'm looking online, and I'm looking at stuff because I'm like, I think I can order sod online and have it delivered, and I'll lay it myself. Okay? But even that was a couple of $100. Not a couple, it was several $100s. So I'm driving from my office. This is 2 or 3 days, 4 or 5 days later, and something said to me, why don't you go into Home Depot and just look at the packages? So I go into Home Depot and I start reading these packages, and this guy walks by and he says, can I help you? I says, well, let me tell you my dilemma. And so I tell him, and he says, well, maybe you want to try this. So I just bought it. I go home, I tell my husband, I says, I want you to get a tiller, we're going to till the ground, and you and I are going to go out and we're going to put down the fertilizer, and we're going to put down the seeds. He just looked at me like, good grief. Okay. And I just ignored it, and we did it. We did it. I wish you could drive to my house now. And that was 3 or 4 weeks ago. It is beautiful. The neighbor came over, who of course thought that I'm just a woman, I don't know. He knows more than me. And I told my husband, I said, y'all need to listen sometimes. The neighbor comes over and he says to my husband, he says, you know what? I didn't think it would work. But she's proven to me that it works. If you drive up now and you see his yard, and he's only done it 2 weeks. 2 weeks! His yard is as green as her top. I'm not kidding you. And I saw it the other morning, and I says, aren't you happy that you didn't spend all of that money to get that stuff laid in? He says, yeah, LaSharnda, I didn't think it would work, but it worked. Anyway, I say all of that to say this to you, is that you can be creative too. But you know what we'll do? We'll let somebody say to us, that's not going to work. And then we believe them. And then we go, I'm not that kind of woman. I don't believe you when you say I can't do something. I got to try it, and then if it fails, I tried it. And it didn't work. And now I know what to do next. That was my first time putting up backsplash. And my husband comes into the room and he says, did you see that side of the back? I says, you know what, don't be a Monday morning quarterback. So, you've convinced yourself, you'll say it even to yourself, not other people, but you will say to yourself, I'm not creative, I'm not talented. You'll say, I'm not disciplined enough. You'll hear people say, I can't go to the gym. I can't do it. Stop using the word can't. I really want that. When we hear our grandson say, we'll say, do not use can't, do not use can't, do not use can't use the word can't, don't use it. And so we'll even say such things as, I'm not lucky enough. I'm not a lucky person. Make your own luck. Make your own luck. You think you're not one of the chosen few. People used to do this all the time when I was working in the government, where they would say things like, I'm not, one of the anointed ones and stuff like that. And I say, what's for you is for you, and you don't have to be one of the anointed ones. You don't need to be one of the so-called, ones that people have decided they like you. You need to be who you are, and then work with that. Number 3, you've accepted the power of your fears. That's what I talked about this morning, where we will let fear control us. We won't step out because we're fearful that we're going to fail. Now, I know you've heard that term before, and you'll say, okay. But let me tell you what I mean. Let me bring it down for you. We're fearful that people will laugh at us if we do fail. We're fearful that, if we fail, and by the way, if we fail, we ourselves are our worst enemy, because we'll keep bringing it up and reminding ourselves just how bad we failed. And if anything, you go online and read, if you would just simply read about some of our greats, they failed many, many, many times before they succeeded. And so I take that approach to life, is that, you know what, people have blocked me on every station somebody tried to block me. But I succeeded in spite of them. I was telling some students, I'm also a chair of the School of Business. I didn't say that, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
For one of the universities. And I'm in charge of the Masters of Business Administration, so the MBA and the MOL. MOL is Masters of Organizational Leadership, their programs. And I was telling one of the students just the other day, I said, You know, there's several ways to skin a cat. For you that are cat lovers, don't get mad at me. You know what I mean? But you know, you've heard that saying before. There's many ways of doing things. And so just because you don't do it my way doesn't mean that you're gonna fail. Just step out. Don't concede to your fears. Don't concede to your fears. When you concede to your fears, you're letting your fears control you. So you won't do anything. But you need to learn how to control your fears. You know what you should do? You should do something that you're afraid of doing. Can I ask, how many people in here have ever done zip line? Two of you, okay. Three of us. Do you know how old I was when I did zip line for the first time? Were you all over 20, over 30?
Over 65.
And I was in my 50s when I did zip line for the first time. Same thing. How many of you have ever done whitewater rafting? I did that too, only several years ago, you know, for the first time. And I was terrified, but I did it. I was even more terrified jumping off the zip line, to tell you the truth. But I did it. Do something that you're fearful of. I'm serious. What are you fearful of? Tell me something. Height. Okay.
Getting up on a roof or something, or too high on a ladder.
Too high on a ladder? How about if you got in an elevator and you went all the way up, like, that would be fine? Oh, it would be fine. Okay. So,
I don't even like elevators.
okay. But would you get in one and try it?
I've gone in elevators.
No, would you get in one and try going to a higher height? Like, higher than you've been?
Not if I didn't have to.
Not if you didn't have to. What are you fearful of? What is it about the elevator?
I don't know.
I mean, the height.
It's just fear of height, being up high. I just tense up and feel wobbly and like I'm gonna fall over.
Yeah.
Lived in Detroit, Michigan, went up to the top.
Yay for Detroit.
Okay.
Pardon me.
I think it was it the gas or electric building where you could go all the way up to the top, and they had a restaurant up
The
there.
Renaissance Center.
And went up there with a group of people and had to go to the ladies' room. And the ladies' room, there glass all the way down to the floor, and you gotta turn and go into your little stalls. And I waited till a person on the very end stall came out and went in that one. I could not walk in front of that, the glass going down there. I felt like I was falling over.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
Now, when you got in the elevator to go up to the top, to the restaurant, how was that? Because the elevator's outside. It's the
No,
whole,
this was inside.
you didn't go on the outside elevator.
No, I wouldn't go on an outside elevator.
Okay.
If one of her kids or somebody needed her and they were up there, she would do it.
Yeah.
She would do it.
If it was necessary, she would, yeah.
Blindfold.
She would do it and then have a panic attack.
And then have a panic attack afterwards.
Just do it.
Yeah. Well, but if, you know, one thing that can help is to face your fears and just try. Just try. I think the more and more you would play in areas where you're fearful, you'll start to you'll start to overcome in other areas of your life. But when we're fearful, that tends to spill over everywhere, where we're afraid that if I do this, and let me tell you how you approach it, not you, but just in general, how we approach things. We may say things like, I can't do that. I'm just not good at that. I can't, suppose. And you know what the suppose will always be? What do you think follows the word suppose? What do you think people say that's struggling with, the fear piece? What do you think people say? Suppose I fail. Suppose what else? They'll come up with all the reasons that will be negative that could happen. And my question is always, but suppose you succeed. And so suppose I fail, suppose I don't get this, suppose this doesn't happen. Do you hear all of that? And so this leads me to my next one. You're your own worst naysayer. Can you be your own worst naysayer?
Absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely.
We have to be, is it easy?
Yes.
I don't want
easier.
y'all to let it be easy.
It's easier to criticize yourself before other people do it.
I want you to come out of that. How many of you feel that it's easier to criticize yourself? I don't want you to criticize yourself first. That's okay.
It's just me.
I mean, because you gotta, but people aren't, sometimes they're wired like that. Let's not, don't think she's just saying it. There's a lot of people that really will, that's easy for them to look at all of their flaws and accentuate all of their flaws, and they can give another person a compliment before they can give themselves a compliment. On my show, I have women do a weekly affirmation, and I almost did it in here, but the weekly affirmation really is about saying out loud to yourself just how special and how unique and how wonderful you are. And the reason I have people do that every week is because naysayers will come along and say, that stuff doesn't work. Well, yeah, you're right, it doesn't work if they're listening to you. So the thing is that the point of an affirmation, it's not that you're saying stuff just to be saying it. I want people to say it so they'll start to hear good things about themselves every week. The more you repeat that affirmation about yourself, eventually, it won't take me to have you say it. You'll start to say that on your own. Do you understand what I mean? I force people into saying those things. I force them into saying those things over and over and over again. Because when here's an example. Why don't you stand up? Here's an example. I want you to do this for me. Now, watch what happens. I want you to say, I am special.
I'm special.
I'm unique.
I'm unique.
And I'm fully capable.
And I'm fully capable
of achieving.
Of achieving
My hopes.
my hopes,
My dreams.
my dreams,
My goals.
my goals.
It doesn't matter
It doesn't matter
what anybody else says about me.
what anyone else says about me.
I am.
I am
Unique.
unique.
I'm special.
I'm special.
And I'm fully capable.
And I'm fully capable.
Now, there's a whole lot more to it. Can I ask you something? Be honest with me. How many of you were okay with saying it or felt uncomfortable, awkward? Maybe not uncomfortable, but awkward saying it.
I feel okay. I do.
I felt okay.
Very good. I'm going to tell you something. When I have women do this like in a bigger crowd, you can almost look and tell the ones that don't believe that about themselves. You can, and honestly, I did look at you all and you did seem comfortable. So I thought, well, that's probably why you're here, because you get up and see it. But do you understand what I mean? Sometimes when I have seen, I can look in a crowd and you can tell people that are kind of timid, and it's because they really don't feel that way about themselves. So they may, if they see me looking at them, they may say it because they don't want me to single them out. But I would single them out anyway. But sometimes it's so hard for women to say great things about themselves. If you're able to do this here, and I'm glad that you were able to do that, then you can say it to yourself alone. My thing is say it to yourself alone, how often?
Daily.
Yeah. You should say it to yourself daily. Why? What's the point of that?
Because doubt kills all of your blessings.
And that's excellent. She says doubt will do what?
It kills your blessings.
When we start to doubt, first of all, I say to people that every one of us, we've been given a unique set of skills. Every one of us. Now, you can say, well, I don't know where mine are, but every one of us, we've been given that. And so I say we're supposed to embrace those and be thankful for them. And then when we take that attitude of happiness toward those, we will start to use them. We'll start to figure out some way of using them. And we may not, nobody has to be on the world stage where you're out impacting the world, but you are put on this earth for a specific reason. And your little piece does impact the world. You just may not see it. We're all interactive. We're all in this together. And so let me just get to this other piece. Sorry, you got me up. I probably should, because I'll get excited about this in a minute. I want to finish this. When we go back to this piece here about you're your own worst naysayer, don't focus on how your plans will fail or how you'll fail. Focus on how you might succeed, okay? Number 5, don't adopt a fatalistic attitude. Do you know what a fatalistic attitude is? Anybody? Fatalist, what's that? Yeah, you know, I have this thing about saying, don't speak death over people, speak life over people. What does that mean? I know you know because you're smiling. What does it mean?
But when you know, it's always telling you, be careful what your tongue brings out because you can speak things into being.
Existence,
Yeah.
yeah. I say, be careful about what you speak into the universe because it bounces back to you. Be careful about what you speak into the universe because it bounces back to you. How many times have you been around somebody, hopefully none of y'all speak negatively. You know, that's not your natural language. Do you understand? Like, you're not a natural pessimist. Have you ever heard anybody use that term? They'll say, I'm just a natural pessimist. And I know, who would say that? Who would say that you're a natural? I would say I'm a natural pessimist. You right? Wouldn't you want to say, I'm an optimist? I'm a natural optimist. But to say or have you ever heard anybody say, how many of you say I'm a realist?
Oh, I hear that all the time.
And so I said that to a person just recently. The person said it, and I just kind of, when I hear that, I'm going to tell you the truth. When I hear somebody say that now, if you say it, I'm not saying this is you. I'm simply saying this is what I think. When I hear people say, I'm a realist, you know what I hear? What do you think I hear when a person says, I'm a realist?
I don't believe.
I don't believe what?
I don't believe I can make it or it happen.
Okay, anybody else? You're on the right track. When I hear a person say, I'm a realist, and they have a choice between optimist and pessimist, I hear pessimist. I just do. And I said that to somebody. I said, I'm going to tell you the honest to God truth. When I hear a person say, you know, I'm just a realist, what they're saying is that I don't want to hear that optimistic stuff. I'm a realist, meaning I don't believe it. You know, I don't believe it. I'm a realist. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. But the point I'm trying to make is this, is that here we go back to choosing your attitude. And so you can either choose to believe that you can change things in your own little corner of the world, or that things change, that you have no control, that things just happen, you know, and that you have absolutely no control over it. And I don't believe that. I just don't. And even when things happen, we still have the right to choose how we respond to them, right? We really do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we do.
The choice is most important. Like you said, you know, like there's some people that said that happiness is how you make it, like you've been telling us. It is how you look at life.
It
There's
is.
so many ways of doing it.
Yeah. It really boils down to how we look at life. Do we look at the glass half empty, or do we look at the glass half full, right? Yeah. And I'm telling you, there really are people that automatically look at the glass half empty. And I can hear them coming. Can't you? Haven't you been around people where you can feel it? And I'm the type of person, when I hear them doing it, I'm thinking, I gotta get away. I get away. I do. I really do. I can't be around for very long. Because I'm on my show, and even in the book I tell you, in the book I'll say, run away as soon as you can. Don't stick around people that always got something negative to say. You think you're going to change them? What will happen is you will start to behave just like them. That's right. You know, when you hear people using bad language, like I use profanity. Okay, so, you know, have you ever seen where people that generally don't use profanity, and then all of a sudden they're hanging with people that use profanity? What starts to happen? Some may just slip.
Right.
You know, and that's why I used to tell my son, I'm like, look, be careful about the people you hang out with, because it eventually rubs off. I know we think, especially us optimists, we think that we can change people. You can't change people. You really can. I got one more, and then we're done, because I know it's 7:54. You've decided you've missed your chance, and this is the one for you, and this is the one that really stuck with me. You've decided that you missed your chance, and this is what I have here. You're too old, too committed, too set in your ways, to turn back now. Instead, you sit and you watch younger and more free people do what you want to do. I'll close with this. You're never too old. We're only set in our ways if we choose to be set in our ways. But if we want to make change, we want to see things happen, we want to live a life that we were destined to live, we simply have to decide. No, I don't believe that it has any, you know, I think about myself, I'm pretty technologically driven. I know technology and stuff. And so for people to kind of put you in a box and say, at a certain age, you don't know anything about technology, or they don't know social media, and I can work social media too, at my age. It's about attitude, and it has absolutely nothing to do with age. Now, we may have to do things slower, or maybe do things a little bit different, but it still doesn't mean that we can't do it. So don't say things like, haven't you heard people say that? I'm too old. My time has passed. Well, if you take that attitude, your time has passed. But if you take the attitude that I'm going to live life to the fullest until it is time for me to go in the ground, then you will live a full, happy, and satisfied life. And so I open it up now for you. If you can they ask me questions? Okay. If you like to ask questions, I'm available to you, because I want to be respectful of your time. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to salute Ms. Ari for having you here.
Thank you.
And it's important that whatever we do and say, that it's honest and true. Well, this woman has spoken truth, not that she's not a